Yesterday, we had some pretty big news on Blizzard's plan on the eradication of addons for a midnight. We had both of a new blog post coming straight from Blizzard on the changes they have planned or already implemented in the midnight alpha, as well as a very important meeting they have had with Mystical OS and Funky, which are the devs for DBM and Bigwigs, to try to hear their complaints and the things they would like to see improved in midnight and have, let's just say, some promises. So things that we aren't actually seeing in game in the alpha yet, but they have at the very least stated that they will come by midnight. So before talking about the good things, because yes, we do have some good news for today, however, we have to start with the bad stuff. So basically confirmations of things not happening or not coming back, since they have now been removed pretty much in the alpha, not coming back at all. The most important thing, the most important philosophy Ion, as he cost us, our lead game designer, was trying to explain was the fact that they want you to play the game through what's happening in the game and not through addons. They don't want addons to tell you, to essentially to move you around in autopilot. You hear a sound that says dodge. You hear another message that tells you to spread. Then you have a big text in the middle that tells you go to cross. And then you look at your DBM bars and the incoming mechanic is called soak. You don't even know the name of the mechanic, you just know that's the soak. They don't want that happening in midnight. The explanation is that they want you to be looking at the boss, they want you to be looking at his cast bar, at his energy bar growing, at the sound he's gonna be making, the emotes he's gonna be making. So basically looking at the game rather than looking at your UI. So all of these things are confirmed not happening. So Blizzard is not going to be allowing any kind of addons to support timer emphasis. So they're not going to allow you to turn a certain ability bar to be green, to be glowing, to be bigger than the others, to move that in a different position than the others. They won't allow that boss mod bar to have a different audio countdown, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blizzard will also not be allowing you to rename anything, even if you have an addon, which will be able to exist in midnight like DBM or Bigwigs or even Wikoras. You will still only be allowed to use what Blizzard gives you. So you won't be able to change your bars and change all of the names of the mechanics of the spells. You won't be able to rename all of these lengthy names. You have to remind yourself of the 30 different mechanics in Dimensius and change them to soak, frontal, spread, stack, dodge. That's gone. Because, again, they want you to roleplay in remembering the original name of each mechanic and then remember what you're supposed to be doing based on the original name of the mechanic. So instead of having 7 different bosses doing a frontal mechanic and you just see the bar that tells you to dodge the frontal, now instead you will only have the 7 different names of the 7 different mechanics and you will have to remember those are the frontal mechanics. They will also not be allowing you, confirmed, to have any kind of editing related to interrupts. So there is no interrupt bars, interrupt tracking in your party in Mythic Plus, for example. There is also confirmed not going to be anything related to Mythic Plus trash cooldown abilities on the nameplates. So whether you were using the one from Wikoras or you were using the one built in DBM or Bigwigs, that's removed. It's not coming back. They fully intend to make Mythic Plus approachable without these 2 things related to casts of enemies, either or having longer cast times for you to have more time to react, or very simply fewer casters packed together in pools. And the last thing in the negatives, in the removals, is the confirmation of this philosophy of wanting you to play the encounter rather than the UI, the orders the UI gives you, is, again, no more renaming of anything in your UI that could give you any hints. For example, any warning that can pop up to tell you to dodge, to tell you to spread, to tell you to go to cross. All of this is gone, because addons like DBM right now, or even Wikoras if it will exist, would only be allowed to feed you text that Blizzard has. So for any ability, even if DBM was able to show you something for this Shroud of Darkness mechanic, which is nothing but a soak, they would only be able to pop up, if they wanted to pop up a text warning, Shroud of Darkness. They won't be able to tell you, go to cross, go to star, stack with range, or stack with melee. They would only be able to show you the name of the ability. The last point of these removals is, again, not allowing addons to give you any help in sounds specific to debuffs or targeting of players. So you are able to have sounds and mechanic warnings for a cast, like the Grand Blazing Inferno. You can have that. You can have your timer for the Grand Blazing Inferno. However, if the Grand Blazing Inferno puts 5 debuffs on 5 players and they have to spread before they blow up, you won't be able to have a timer and tell players Grand Blazing Inferno is on you. You won't be able to have a sound effect warning because the mechanic went on you, an automatic marker going on your head because you have the Grand Blazing Inferno, any text popping up on the screen telling you to go to the edge of the room because you have Grand Blazing Inferno on you. The only thing you will be able to track is the cast of this Grand Blazing Inferno, and that's it. That's the first biggest part of these changes, is that Blizzard doesn't want you to play the UI, doesn't want you to just basically ignore what's on the floor, what the boss is doing, what the boss is casting, because the only thing you're waiting for is a sound cue, is a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown to soak or spread, or this kind of direction that the addons were giving you, and Blizzard is now taking them all away. It's confirming that these things are not coming back to help you in the raid. What is coming to help you in the raid? Number one of the changes is the spellcasts. Blizzard has relaxed restrictions around spellcast APIs to the player's own spellcasts. They are no longer going to be a secret, so you can parse them through addons. This means, number one, sure, you can style now your cast bar however you want, but also this could be used as a scuffed way to give you a similar thing to your Wikora suite of abilities, because now you can track the cooldown of those abilities by simply tracking when the cast was successful. So if your Fire Breath has a 30-second cooldown, you cannot parse Fire Breath. Your addon cannot look at Fire Breath, cannot see if you have Fire Breath on cooldown, but what you can do is see when Fire Breath cast is successful, in which case you can add through an addon that Fire Breath has a 30-second cooldown. So once Fire Breath is successful, the cast is successful, you can start an icon grayed out with a 30-second timer, and that would be your Wikora pop-up for your Fire Breath cooldown. So technically that could also work not just for spellcasts, but also to show you cooldowns now of your abilities the way you want. What's the problem? This would have to be quite a nerdy, min-maxy manual thing, because this doesn't take into account any kind of cooldown reduction. So any spells that are hasted wouldn't work normally with this, right? Because if you have haste reducing the cooldown of your abilities by 4 seconds, you have a successful cast of the ability, the game will parse the default ability, which has a 15-second cooldown, even though your actual ability has an 11-second cooldown, because you're hasting it. What about buttons like Anger Management, which dynamically reduce the cooldown of your ability? Or another good example would be Combustion for a Fire Mage. By default, Combustion has a 2-minute cooldown. So with this new change, you would be able to parse the successful spellcast of Combustion and put Combustion to show up in your frames as a cooldown with 2 minutes left. And, you know, right now, Fire Mages playing Sun Fury, they are playing with both Kindling for Combustion CDR and Unleashed Inferno for also Combustion CDR, are legitimately bringing down the Combustion from a 120-second cooldown ability to a 30. second cooldown ability. So you would have to have this weak aura that also has a custom configuration for you to manually put into the combustion cooldown to not be 120 seconds, because all you can do parsing the completion of the spell cast is to warn you that combustion was successfully cast, so now it starts the 120-second cooldown timer. You would have to manually edit it down to be 30 seconds, because that's the average when you can expect combustion to come back off cooldown. So it's still kind of scuffed. It's not exactly what we currently have as a way to track our cooldowns with weak auras. But this change right here, the Spellcast one, could be a scuffed way also to show some of your cooldowns now in your UI without using the Blizzard's default UI. Blizzard is also going away with the load add-ons out of date option for the release of Midnight. They are now forcing interface matching for 12.0, so in pre-patch you can only load add-ons that have been updated to be compatible with 12.0. This is likely to reduce their ticket spam, their customer support ticket spam by 99%. All of the players complaining of FPS drops or problems with their UI breaking down, they're just avoiding this problem by not having players be able to load out-of-date add-ons for the pre-patch. Very important things for quite a few specs, but particularly Brewmaster, they are relaxing the restrictions behind unit power. So now you are able to style your resource like stagger, but even things like soul shards or even things like combo points the way you want. The other positive, and this was a very big thing because it was like huge, the fact that it was still not addressed, is the fact that currently in the alpha of Midnight, for example, you have no way whatsoever of choosing what you want to see in your boss bars, in your boss abilities. So you have a boss with 20 abilities. If you enable the boss timer, you are gonna get all those 20 abilities, even the completely useless ones, the tank busters when you're not a tank, or a mechanic that only targets ranged. If you're a melee, you have no ways of editing which abilities you want or didn't want to see. So after the talk with the two lead devs of DBM and Bigwigs, Blizzard did give the confirmation that in the future builds in the beta, they will be adding an API feature that will let Addon authors filter spells from their timeline. This is relevant because it now means you have to have an add-on for your boss bars if you want to start filtering useless spells from your timeline. The other thing that will come up through add-ons is the option to show spellcast count on all abilities. You know, Fire Nova 1, Fire Nova 2, Fire Nova 3, Fire Nova 4. To help you sort of put yourself in place in the fight. Maybe you are the ones who has to soak the odd casts or the even casts. It's kind of hard if you are 3 minutes into the fight and there is Fire Nova 7 and you kind of lost count of which Fire Nova cast it is. Now with this change you get back to being able to see the count on the spellcasts of the bosses. Now this is the major thing that likely will help you, because of course players will try to find the path of least resistance, trying to do what Blizzard said they don't want you to do, which is make add-ons directive, have add-ons solve the fights for you, like direct you like a puppet on what to do every time. This one can help. Blizzard will be adding an API that will let add-ons register sounds to cast alerts. So you can now choose which sound, which includes TTS, and tie them to casts of the fight. Now, we already said this won't work for targeting mechanics. So if you are targeted with the bomb, if you are targeted with the mechanic yourself, you won't be able to have the TTS tell you soak, spread, and whatever, but you can attach sounds to cast alerts. So if the big mechanic coming is a frontal, you cannot rename the mechanic to be called frontal. You cannot have a pop-up in the screen in the with a text telling you it's a frontal, telling you to dodge. But you can now have a sound alert to tell you it's a frontal. So that does kind of still help you managing the fight, having the sound, the TTS, for example, alert on the different kind of mechanics. Now, talking about this help with the sounds, because they realize they can't realistically add all of the different sound effects they want in their own UI, they realize the same things for your cooldown manager. So they are now going to be making sure add-ons can add their own sound options to the cooldown manager. So you are gone having to be limited by the few options Blizzard gives you to the UI. Now you can choose whatever you want when it comes to your abilities, your buffs, even your procs. If you want to be made aware with an audio cue about a certain proc, for example, now you can do it with an add-on. Then you have the under consideration part they mentioned related to healers. Healers have been quite annoyed or just disappointed or depressed about the incoming changes to the UI. So Blizzard is saying they are looking at ways to improve the ability for add-ons. So they're not talking about the base UI. They're just going straight to add-ons. A way for add-ons to completely recreate unit frames from scratch, including things like adding unit health bar templates to style them the way you want, including various pieces needed by unit frame health bars like absorbs or predicted heals, as well as the ways to improve aura filtering for buffs and debuffs, which is primarily a healer thing. Obviously, no, this doesn't include being able to have an icon show if a player is being targeted by a mechanic, or icons showing players using an offensive ability or players using a defensive ability. This is still not into this kind of tool for healers. But in this example, if this were to be added, you would be able to use Cell with the same unit frame health bar, the same absorb UI style, the same incoming healing style, the same heal absorb style of the add-on, as well as have Cell give you the way to ignore certain buffs or debuffs on the frames because you don't care about them. Right, there are different mechanics that in the raid would have completely irrelevant debuffs, like there is a boss that gives you a ticking 5% damage taken every 10 seconds, right? And then you would have to see this icon on 20 players in the raid. You don't care about it, right? You know it's there. You don't need to see this icon on the entire raid all the time, so you want it gone. Currently, you have no ways of getting it gone. So this thing would allow you to start filtering out these useless debuffs, for example, on players, as well as the useless buffs on players you might not want to see, like raid buffs. You don't care, your own raid buff, your own Blessing of the Bronze if you're an evoker on the entire raid, or the Spirit Link icon on the entire raid. Maybe you don't care about Rattling Cry icon on the entire raid. You have no ways of filtering them right now, and with this change you would be able to. So this is for now what we have in terms of changes in the alpha of Midnight, both in already implemented or soon to be implemented changes in the phase 6 of the alpha, the last one before the beta goes live next reset, as well as the promises Blizzard made after talking to the developers of DBM and bigwigs into improving the boss timeline coming in Midnight, as well as a few quality of life changes to your own cooldown manager UI. So from this we have learned a couple of things. Number one, they have already given up on trying to give you as many options. I mean, they were never going to give you as many options as an add-on, but at least even something passable as a number of options as an add-on. And they have already started to defer. They have already started to leave the possibility of add-ons to come up with replacements. They aren't even trying to do them themselves now. So the support for audio cues being given to add-ons, the support for spellcasts, for changing them completely or changing all of the unit frames completely is already given to add-ons. They are giving up already on trying to do that themselves, trying to add that amount of customization in the base UI. They have been saying, we are okay with add-ons coming up with all that stuff. And then the second point, which is the restriction point, they do really want to have a much harder, much more tight roleplay element to Midnight. So they don't want add-ons to tell you what to do, where to go. They don't want pop-ups in the screen telling you what to do. They don't want you bars of the boss mods telling you it's a frontal coming. They don't want add-ons telling you, you have the bomb, you have the things to spread for, you have the things you have to stack for. They want you to essentially learn the boss abilities. They want you to look at the boss emotes, look at, the way the boss is facing, what is he saying, the animation he's propping up, or the particle effects around the boss signaling certain mechanics coming, rather than having add-ons do it for you. That is how they are planning to style Midnight. Obviously, the same things players will say when they hear something like this is that they are very, very skeptical, because, first of all, Blizzard was never able to do this successfully in the game, and number two, they're just wondering how it's gonna work in a raid with 20 players, tons of different particle effects, audio cues. You are in voice comms with your raid members, and you're supposed to notice what the boss is doing, or notice what emote the boss is saying in the middle of all of that. It seems like it would be quite complicated, as well as the Mythic Plus promises of cutting down on the amount of casts, cutting down on the deadly one-shot casts, which is why we want to give you interrupt trackers, we want to give you mob spell cooldown on nameplates, we want to allow you to rename each individual mob, we want to allow you to recolor each individual cast bar, or recolor each individual nameplate health bar of each mobs. Trust us, it will work. That is where players are being a bit more skeptical about these changes. But at least, despite these restrictions, we have gotten more QoLs and more planned, promised QoLs coming in the next couple of weeks, between the end of the alpha of Midnight and the beginning of the beta. So we will see soon enough how all of these changes will be implemented. For now, what is there left to do is to wait. So for this, on this Thursday, we can now leave each other. We're starting the goodbyes as usual by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who has been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I was surprised to see the sun at 7 in the morning. For some reason, I thought we were already deep in winter.